What if you could design and launch a professional portfolio that looks completely custom, is fully responsive across desktop and mobile without touching a single line of code? Well, Framer makes this possible. And in this video, I'll show you how to design and build your own portfolio completely from scratch so you can confidently showcase your best work and finally get that site you've been thinking about live fast. And the best part is, designing with Framer is completely free.
So we're going to start by creating a new project, and we've got lots of templates here and they have a great template marketplace, but we're going to create a blank document. And with this page selected, you can adjust the properties like width and height from the right-hand side.
So project file check. Now let's take a quick look at Framer's interface and the tools.
So the home icon takes us, well, back home where we can see all our projects, and you can load multiple projects and they appear as tabs along the top. We've got this main menu here that has lots of stuff in, and this one here is show guides. So very useful if you want to work with a grid system, for example. Pages here, these are live website pages, and design, we'll come back to that in a second. And we can switch over to layers. So everything we add will appear here. And then we have assets if you're going to reuse colors, fonts, or any components throughout the document. Now the insert menu is very useful. We've got an AI wireframer here if you want to use a prompt to generate a wireframe, or we've got some components that you can use here that are pre-made. Now if we go a bit further down, we've got some icons. Each one of these is a complete icon set. We'll come back to that. Here you can add images, videos, forms, you can add search bars, all really, really useful stuff. And then if we go along the top, we've got the layout drop down where we can structure our pages. We've got the text option where we can, well, add text. With the vector menu, we can add shapes, or we can use the path tool to draw custom paths. So this is very similar to the pen tool in many other apps. So there we go. We have a lovely rectangle and a circle, and we can adjust the properties, fill colors, whether it's solid, a linear gradient, or a radial gradient, all of that stuff from the right-hand side for the selected object. Now, if we press P for the vector tool, this is effectively a pen tool of sorts, and we can use this to draw custom shapes. And once you've drawn a bunch of anchor points, you can click on them to edit them as well. Now, in the layers panel, you can see all this nonsense is here that I've added. Let's just delete that. And from the top right corner, we can preview our page. We can invite people to collaborate, or we can just go and publish it. Now, along the bottom, we have the main selection tool. We have the pan tool, or you could just hold spacebar and click and drag to pan around. We've got the comment tool where we can click and leave a comment if we are collaborating with other people. Maybe it's some feedback. I don't know. Let's just go and resolve that one. And here we can switch between light and dark mode. And if we click this icon, we can search and use plugins. Now, if we jump back to the Pages tab for a second, we can right click on any page and we get a bunch of options. And we can also go to settings and we get lots of settings there, or we can click the arrow to go back.
And whilst Framer is plenty powerful, you can see the amount of things you need to learn is actually pretty minimal, which is great because now it means we can just move on to the fun stuff, the design work.
So next to the design section, let's click the plus and we get a new design page. I'm going to call this portfolio. And we can then go and add a frame. Now a frame could be like an artboard or a page. Think of it in those terms. And again, we're going to define the same 1440 width and a nice long height so we can add plenty of content. And I'm going to call this desktop. That will make sense a bit later. And let's go with a nice dark background as well. Right, T for the type tool. Click anywhere and start typing. Now I'm going to type my name. Let's change the color to white. And let's pick a font. Let's go with good old Montserrat. Love it. And I'm just going to take a second to adjust some of the font properties on the right-hand side and kind of turn this into a bit of a logo of sorts. Now we can use the scale tool, which is K on the keyboard, and we can scale this text up exactly as is, and it will preserve its form. And now I'm going to add some more text here. So this is going to be like a one-liner describing the type of creative work that I do. So for this site, I'm going to focus more on my digital artwork. And we've got a bit more descriptive copy here. Now we could create a button from scratch, but I'm going to grab this component here and just pinch the button from that by cutting and then deleting everything else and then pasting the button back in. So if we paste it in there you go. You can see it's now inside the desktop frame. Let's call it button, seems suitable. And then we'll move it back up there at the top. Now this button looks fine. We can change the text, but let's go and add an icon and make it a bit more interesting. So I'm going to pick the hero set. I've accidentally put it there. So we're going to cut this, go inside the button and paste it. Now this button here is what's called a stack. And what we can do is stack content horizontally or vertically. So here's horizontal running left to right, and here's vertical top to bottom. Now for this, of course, we want it horizontal, just so they sit side by side. And if we select the icon, we can now go and pick from all of these different icons or just search for what we're looking for. So I want a right facing arrow. And there we go. Just like that, we have one in, and I can go and change the color of the text, the properties, all that good stuff. I'm going to make the button color. Let's go for like a pinkish red, and we can bump the padding up as well, which is the spacing above, below, and either side of the text. And adding more padding can help add a bit of breathing room to your buttons. And another property we can change is the corner radius, so effectively how rounded the corners are. And I'm going to go back and add some more padding just because I don't want everything to be too squish. And because we're working with a stack with the text and the icon alongside each other, we can adjust the gap value here and control it this way. Right, I think for that title text, we need to make that a bit more interesting. So we've got lots of fonts built into Framer here, which is very cool. We're going to use Montserrat. We're going to beef this up. Maybe not extra bold, kind of beefy. Let's drop it down to bold. And we can adjust the sizing here very quickly, as you'd expect with a design tool. Or we can change the grow option if we want to have this wrap on multiple lines. So there we go, looks good. Let's just scooch that up. Now I'm going to select just one word and we're going to search for another font. And I do quite like using Pixelfy Sans. So we're going to go with that and just bump the size up a bit so it matches everything else. And I think we're going to pull this out in the same pink color. Yeah, nice. And again, you can see me here using the scale tool, so I can scale this up without having to fiddle around with all those font properties again. Right, now we're going to work on our second section. We're going to have our projects. We're going to start by adding an image. Let's just drag it in and snap it to the left edge. Make it a bit taller. And then we'll drag with Alt Option and Shift to duplicate, and then Command or Control D to repeat. And we're just going to stretch these so they fill the entire width of the frame. And then we're going to bring them down, make them a little bit taller. There we go. Right, now we're going to delete two of these and just leave one. And this will make sense in a moment why. So let's copy some more text and we're just going to change this to project title. What we're going to do now is duplicate this up and we're going to add some hashtags here, or this could be a description of each project. Whatever you want is entirely fine. And we're going to change the font for this one. So we'll go back to Inter, make it a bit smaller. And then we can use the arrow keys to nudge that into position. Now, if we select the image and the text, right click, we can add a frame around everything. We do have stacks as well, but we'll come back to that in a moment. And now what we're going to do is right click and we're going to convert this into a component. And let's give it a name. We'll call this work. And you can see we're now inside the component, and in Framer, components are purple. And you can see down here, we can add things like hover states that we're absolutely going to come back to. But first we're going to select project name and we're going to go to content and we're going to create a variable. Now let's give this a very descriptive name. And we're also going to do this for the other bit of text as well. And the reason we're doing this is because both of these bits of text are going to be unique for every single image. So we want to be able to change them on a per image basis while still being able to get the benefits of using components. So here for the fill, we're going to create a variable so we can change the image. So if we now go back to our portfolio page, we can see this in action. So we can click this, scroll down here, and we now have those three variables that we defined. So all we have to do is just type the project title over here. We can type our other bit of text. So in this case, I've gone for some hashtags. You might have a project description, whatever you like. And then here we can just pick an image. So I'm going to pick my first piece of work. And you can see it then fills that frame. Now let's duplicate this component a couple of times. And then what we'll do is we'll click each one and we'll change the title, the tags, and the image. Now this is why they're great. If we go back inside the main component, let's just say I want to change the font or the size or any of these properties. I can change it, come back out, and all of the components get updated. So as you can imagine, this is a massive time saver. Now we're also going to add a hover state as well. So when we hover over the image, it does something. So let's click on the first one here. And then what we're going to do is go to effects. No, we're going to go to styles. There we go. Filters. We'll come back to effects later. And what we're going to do is add a grayscale. And you can see it's been added down here. And if we drag this slider all the way up, effectively our image becomes black and white. Now, if we select the hover state and go down to grayscale, we can drag this to 0%. So our image will start black and white, and when the user hovers, it will change to full color. And we'll see that in action a bit later, but for now, we're just going to make more copies of those components and just add in all the different bits of artwork. And now we're going to use the same techniques that we've covered so far to just add some text and add an image. And I'm going to use this to build a little about section of sorts. So we've got a little bit of information about me, and I think I'm going to add some brands I've worked with. So Framer, Adobe, and we'll chuck in Gertwings. I haven't really worked with them. They're a fried chicken company, but we'll just put them in there anyway. And remember to add an image. We go to Insert, Image, drag it in, resize it, reposition it. And then we just set the fill to image, pick our image, and we can change a few other properties as well. So I might want to round the corners a bit. Now we're going to select all the brand names and we're going to add these into a frame. And if we then add a layout, this will convert the frame to a stack, and we can now adjust the spacing with the slider here. And we can choose the distribution as well. So we'll start so it's left aligned, and you can see we control the spacing here. And this is not only convenient, but it can make your design work a lot more consistent as well. So to that end, what we're going to do now is select all of the different elements in this block, add a frame, add a layout. We'll change distribute to start, and then we'll align everything to the left. And then what we can do is adjust the spacing between each element by adjusting, again, this slider. And now what we're going to do is select that stack and this image. We're going to right click and we're going to add a stack as well. So you can see by default, they go left to right. We can change these top to bottom. This will be very useful for mobile, but for this, we're going to keep them horizontal. And now we can control the spacing between these elements. And as you can see, when you start working with stacks, you can't really just drag things and break stuff. I can't drag it out over here. It just snaps it back inside that stack. So stacks are great for introducing more structure. You can always right click and remove the stack and it will take you back to a regular frame.
So for the next section, we need a contact form, and customizing said form and the different fields takes literal seconds. It's flipping brilliant.
So we'll start with the title. Let's just go with Let's Connect. We'll go to Insert, down to Forms, as you might imagine, and we'll drag in the form builder. So we'll pop it up here in the center. And then I'm going to select this text field here and start customizing it. So we'll bump up the opacity and we'll change it to white, I think. Yeah, nice. And then for the fill, we can right click and copy, select another field, and then just right click on the fill and paste, and it will copy those same properties. So that's a nice time saver. Now you can click the blue plus icon to add more things to the form. So it might be more text, or you might want to have a multi-select, and you can delete fields, you can resize fields, you can do all this cool stuff, and you can even change the content type from here. Right, now let's go and change the button. So I think we'll go with that same lovely pink color. Now this button is a component, so we'll need to go inside this to edit it. So we'll change the fill color to that same pink, and we may as well add a hover state as well. So we'll go with the same pink, but just a little bit lighter. So when a user hovers, they will know they've hovered over it because the button will change color slightly. I mean, you can even just grab the form and resize it like this. Like, it's so easy to add, edit, resize, and customize forms. And here you just choose send to. So we'll send the form to an email address, and then you can pop in where you want that submission to go. And then I think to cap off this page, we're just going to have follow me, and we'll just have a few social links. So we've got YouTube, Instagram, and why not? We'll just throw in MySpace for fun. Is that even still around? Is MySpace still a thing? I have no idea. But regardless, there we go. We have our semi-finished design looking pretty good. Now, one last thing I'm going to do is select the entire frame and change the background type to an image. And I have a nice black, gritty grunge texture that I'm going to add. Now, I'm actually going to change this to tile so it repeats across the page. And we can adjust the position here as well. So if I click this, you can see it shows a different part of the image. And if I scroll down, you can see I've now got a nice gritty, grungy background.
Now this next bit for me is what makes Framer truly special, because we're going to take our custom design and we're going to turn it into a live site. And where are we going to do this? Nowhere. We're staying right inside Framer.
But before we do that, one of the great things about Design Pages is that it's perfect for creative freedom and ideation. So if I wanted to create multiple versions and experiment, I can do all of that here before I go into Pages and start trying to build any sort of live site, which is exactly what we're going to do now. So let's select this frame, right click and create web page. And you can see we now have a web page version over here under Pages. This is where our live site lives. And I'm going to set this as the home page and then get rid of that other page that I made by mistake at the beginning. And we already have the desktop version, but if we click the plus, we can now add a tablet and a mobile version. And as we change stuff on the desktop version, you'll see those changes propagated across the other versions as well. But equally, if you want to change just something on the tablet version, you can see I can do it here and it doesn't affect anything else, which is great. So for mobile, I'm going to squish this in and I really have to adjust this to enhance the mobile viewing experience. And it just makes it super simple to do this. Now with this title, text and button, you can select all of this, right click and add a frame or a stack. As you can see, I added a frame and it's actually broken some stuff on the other pages, but we'll come back to that later. But what I'm trying to do here is just organize everything into different sections. So here I'm going to select all of the artwork and I'm going to add a stack. Now we've used a traditional stack, but we can actually change this to a grid and we can define the number of rows and columns and we can adjust the gap between them on the X and Y axes. So you can see making a gallery like this is super simple. And if we select this grid on the tablet version, we can bring the number of columns to 2. And if we do the same for mobile, we can bring it all the way down to 1, which just makes a lot more sense for mobile. Now I'm just going to speed this bit up. All I'm doing here is selecting all of the different sections and putting them all inside of their own frame and then giving that frame a name in the layers panel. So you can see here it's looking a bit more organized. But something else we can also do is select all these sections, right click and add a stack, and we can now control the spacing or the gap between all of the sections on the page. And we can actually go above 100, so just punch in a higher value and you're good to go. So again, we're just adding more structure and making the spacing across elements on our page more consistent. Now I'm going to take a second to just go through and fine tune everything, just to make sure that all 3 versions look good and are suitable for the devices that they will be viewed on. So there we go, that's how it's looking, all tidied up now, lovely. What we can do is click play and we can actually now preview our site right inside Framer and we can actually see our effects in action as well. So remember we set that hover state up earlier. We've got the about section here, we've got the contact form, and we can even adjust the width and see how it loads the tablet and mobile version in real time as well. So we can just check that everything looks good. And what you see in this preview is how the site will actually look once it's published and live.
So this is looking good. I'd go so far as to say great. Well done, Dan. Bit of self-praise there. But we're going to go one step further and add some subtle animation, which to the surprise of absolutely no one is also incredibly easy to add.
So effects in Framer, super simple. Let's just select a component. We can go to effects and I'm going to add a hover. Now I can change all of these properties. I could scale this up, scale it down. I could adjust the rotation and I can even rotate this in 3D space. And this works with real CSS 3D transforms. So you can change one property, or you can change loads of properties and you can adjust the transition type. So I'm going to go with ease because it's nice and smooth. And if we close this down, let's go to preview and we can see this in action. Let's just hover over it and you can see it scales down to 0.9 and it also goes from grayscale to color. Now we can right click on the hover effect, copy it, select all of the other components, right click, paste, paste effects. It's literally that simple. Now we're going to animate this sneaky little arrow as well. So with it selected, let's add a hover effect. And this time we're going to rotate this so it's pointing down. I'll show you why in a moment. And when we hover over it, it rotates. And then it snaps back to its original position when you hover out. And now that's done, we're ready to hit publish. So we'll just click publish. If you make any changes, just update here. And if you have a domain, you can add it and connect that to a paid plan here. Now this random link at the top is a testing link, but we can click that and load it in a browser. And again, you can see the responsiveness in action. In fact, you can see everything in action. The animations, the entire page. It's basically a test version of your site, all singing, all dancing, before you connect it to a domain and publish it. Now, one more thing we're going to do is select the contact form go down to scroll section, click the plus, and we're going to give this an ID. So we're going to type something like contact section, and we'll click this button at the top. Now at the top of the panel here, we could add a link if we want to link to another page, and we're going to do that, but we're going to link to a specific section, and we're going to change it to smooth scroll. So when you click the button, it takes you all the way down to the contact section.
And lastly, in addition to publishing your site, let's say you want to export individual assets or just entire pages to send to a client or hand off to a developer, whatever it is, Framer makes that nice and easy too.
I mean, it couldn't be simpler, really. We just have to select all the assets we want to export, go down to the very bottom, click plus. We've got a bunch of different formats here, so we can adjust the size. We can change this from sRGB to P3, for example. And this color space has a wider gamut, so it can display some more punchy colors and a bit more than sRGB, but sRGB is a bit more web safe. So, you can pick between those two and then just click export and choose where you want to save them. Frame is going to do its thing, and you can see on my desktop, all those files have now been exported. And we can do this for entire pages too. So we'll select desktop, tablet, and phone. We'll go down, click the plus, pick the formats, and just export 3 layers. Click save, and then it will export all 3 pages as a whole.
And that's how easy it is to design and launch your own professional portfolio all inside Framer, no code required. So if that sounds good, or you just want to start designing with Framer, which remember is completely free, I know, insane, there's a link below to get you started. And a big thank you to Framer for building such an awesome design tool and for collaborating with me on this video.